President Samia Suluhu Hassan Suluhu. But then I just to shift our focus to the FTA that has been, the trade deals between Kenya and the U.S. And speak to us about the report. What kind of provisional does this, trade agreement between Kenya and the U.S. provide?
All right. Thank you very much, Brenda. Thank you for having me this morning. So I just want to clarify one or two things that you've said. First of all, Kenya is still in the process of negotiating the trade deal with the U.S. So nothing has been signed as yet. Then secondly, the expiration of AGOA is actually in 2025. So actually that is part of what we covered in this particular report that we released a couple of days ago. And basically what we wanted to do is to review from a factual basis some of the opportunities, some of the considerations that would need to be taken into account as the two countries engage with each other in this trade negotiation. And we managed to talk to various stakeholders in the private sector as well as experts to give us perspective, give us different views on the trade between Kenya and the US, especially if we end up with a free trade agreement with the US, what that would mean for Kenya, what that would mean for the US, what that would mean for the private sector in both countries. And the report really tries to introduce this or bring these different perspectives to bear. But the report just stops shy of making specific recommendations, policy recommendations. And that was not really the end of the report.
All right. But then, Mr. Okello, definitely, U.S. is the third most important destination for our country, Kenya. Exports after Uganda and Pakistan, probably accounting for 8% of its total exports. And this, trade deals that the President and President Uhuru Kenyatta and the former U.S. President Donald Trump had back in 2020, that's last year, 8th of July, if I'm not wrong. This was not there was no pen to paper. It was not signed. Are we likely to see Joe Biden actually, see that this trade agreements that Kenya was having, with the U.S. in terms of talking, the former president, the former president, and also President Uhuru Kenyatta having talks when it comes to trade? Are we likely to see him, push for the implementation of this?
Well, that's a question we all love to answer, but honestly, it's a question that no one can answer for you at this particular time. What we know is that the U.S. government, through the U.S. Trade Representative, which is the agency that drives trade negotiations for the U.S. with governments across the world, are actually reviewing the status of the negotiations. You may be aware that last year there were 2 rounds of negotiations between Kenya and the US, and then there was a change in administration. So it's normal for a new administration to then review what and the status of where negotiations are reached. We also know that the new USTR, the lady called Ambassador Catherine Tai, did have a call. We actually are virtual meeting with our CS for Trade, Betty Maina, a couple of weeks back, discussing the same thing. And you also are aware that because last week, the president also did have a conversation with the Secretary of State, Blinken, discussing the trade deal and amongst other things. So it is our hope that in the next couple of months or even sooner, we should be able to get a definitive view on what happens next as far as this trade.
All right. And, when we're talking about the free trade agreement proposals and, U.S. trade officials have actually described Kenya as a model, a Kenyan deal as a model for the African free trade deals. But then what was the nature of trade engagement between Kenya and U.S. before, and what gaps do the proposals address?
Okay, so the bilateral trade between Kenya and the US, the figures that we have are for 2019 stand at about $1.1 billion US. Kenya actually has a trade advantage with the US. In 2019, we did about $600 dollars in terms of trade with the US. The US did about 400 million. So you can see there's about 600, sorry, not 600, but 200 or so million dollars trade differential between the two countries in favor of Kenya. The bulk of that 667 million US dollars of trade is actually under the AGOA regime. So 70% of that, 500 and something million US dollars, under the AGOA trade regime. And the bulk of that then is apparel, mainly apparel, like 70%. So what the FTA would do for trade between the two countries is to open up other sectors as well, in terms of access, in terms of the breadth of goods that would be there. But I think more importantly, the predictability that the FTA would bring, I think is important, especially when you're thinking about foreign direct investment, which requires a bit of a predictive and long-term trade regime to be there, that AGOA currently is not sufficient for. And one thing that people are not aware of is that AGOA has an annual review, which means that every year the state parties that fall under the AGOA preference do have to go through some eligibility criteria or review for those benefits or preferences to be extended to them. A trade agreement such as an FTA would then bring a much more long.
All right. So from just what you're telling us, Mr. Okello, is that the reason as to why, what you've explained, is it the reason as to why free trade agreements are protracted affairs which may take more than a year to complete? Because when you look at, the Kenya-EU economic partnership agreements, it took more than 10 years to actually complete it. Now we are having one with the US that's not yet even been signed, and, it's not yet even started.
Yeah, that's correct. As you can imagine, there's a lot of agreements such as this. And remember, there's two sides that are negotiating. Each side is trying to do the best possible deal for its country. And if you look at the real this particular trade deal is structured, we're talking about almost 24 chapters that need to be addressed. And, there are so many considerations. There are several stakeholders who are also weighing on this. So it's bound to be a protracted process for sure.
And so let's go back to, let me take you back to the report by the American Chamber of Commerce that analyzed the potential benefits and challenges of the free trade that revealed that Kenya business representatives believe the country will push for more, FDI in the country as preferred, gateway to the rest of the East African market. And you've seen Kenya sign several trade deals, but then I want you to talk to us about the process, what it took and who was involved in drafting the report and where does it go from here?
Thanks for that question. This was a collaborative in ourselves, the Chamber of Commerce here in Kenya, the US Chamber of Commerce now in Washington, as well as in Bali, which is one of the trade deal with the US. And what we did is focused the intervention around three areas. We basically looked at the Kenya-US FTA negotiations themselves. We looked at the impact of the US bilateral with Africa. Then looked at the African Continental Agreement or area and its potential impact on US-Africa trade, which include the FTA that is currently negotiated. We interviewed, as I mentioned, various business executives, dozens of them, as well as trade China Light in this. So, as I mentioned, there were really also findings that we came out with, and that's about this conversation. Probably just highlight if I may. One, I've talked about the which is a big when it comes to foreign direct investment. Then SMEs in international trade. Because
Right.
SMEs of business, of the economy, not just in Kenya, but in the US. So how do we make SMEs?
All right, but then, Mr. Maxwell, just from what you're telling us, when you talk about the Kenya-US trade deals that the President Uhuru Kenyatta, was having with Donald Trump back in 2020, last year. But still, even when they're having these talks about the Kenya-US trade deals, there was no guarantee that Trump was going to come back to office come January this year. And don't you think there was reason for the Kenyan team in Washington to consider informal engagement with the Democrats in case the deal has to be concluded, under the Joe Biden regime?
Well, I want to, as I mentioned before, there are actually conversations that are going on, both formally and informally. The formal ones I've talked about, the formal ones I can't tell. I can only tell what we know. And so, for sure, there is engagement. And part of what we want this report to do is to keep, advancing this dialogue. We want to keep this dialogue going and to show that the, business that we represent, and of course the local Kenyan private sector here as well, is interested in seeing this trade deal come through.
So what are the prospects, Mr. Kelo, for the renewal of, the AGOA Act in 2025? Because if extended, would Kenyan exports not actually cover benefit from U.S. tariff removal? Because that is a question in the minds of so many business people here in the country.
Yeah, well, that's a conversation that is ongoing, the renewal of AGOA. Honestly, there's no straight answer to that at this point in time. No one can tell you whether or not AGOA will be extended beyond 2025. And it's actually one of the key reasons I want to imagine that Kenya is very keen to close this FTA with the US, so that we can preserve the benefits that we already getting under AGOA.
Mm. And so I know you're not a politician, but I believe you're in a position, to answer this question, because even as we focus on the trade and investment opportunities for the two countries, when we look at, from a political perspective, a trade agreement, does it make any sense? Does it shield Kenya from the uncertainties over the extension of the African deal?
An extension of AGOA, you mean?
Yes.
Whether it shields Kenya from that?
Yes.
Well, yeah, for sure. If we can get into an FTA, my view is that part of what is being negotiated is how to make sure that we preserve those benefits. So the duty-free access for various sectors of products in Kenya. I think that would definitely be at the heart of the conversation.
All right, and. What about the focus on trade and investment, opportunities for the two countries? Of course, that is something you've explained for us in just a few minutes ago. But let's talk about the emerging issues and future opportunities for U.S.-Kenya trade relations. Is it something that Joe Biden is really keen on? Because, we do a lot of imports and exports.
Well, I'm not speaking for Joe Biden. I can't speak for Joe Biden. One thing that is there is a lot of interest in Kenya as an investment destination, trade and investment destination. We have that privileged position of being right at the heart of some of these conversations. And remember that the US actually chose Kenya as a partner to negotiate this free trade agreement with. And the free trade agreement, again, and you see this in the report, is seen as a stepping stone to trade engagement with East Africa and the rest of Africa. So in my view, I think that a trade agreement makes sense. A trade agreement between Kenya and the US actually does make sense for both countries to explore and push forward. And we wait to see where we land with this. But my firm conviction is that this is something that should go ahead.
As you end up this conversation, I'd just like to pick your mind, because, from the Kenya's standpoint, these trade talks are less about tariffs and trade. So can we say it's more about attracting investors into the country, U.S. investors into the country?
It combines that. There's so many aspects into a trade. Definitely, the issue of tariffs and non-tariff barriers and various trade tools are covered in there. Foreign direct investment, as I mentioned before, looks at is driven by so many factors as well. Predictability that I talked about, opportunity that is seen, the ease with which an investor can set up and do business in country, and so on and so forth. So definitely, it is about all this. It's about market access. It's about free trade. Foreign direct investment. It is about economic empowerment and so on. So, Brenda, your question and the answer to it is that yes, it's about all these things.
All these things. It's just about tariffs and taxes, but it's also about bringing U.S. investors into the country. Thank you so much, America Chamber of Commerce Kenya Chapter CEO Maxwell Okello, talking to us about the U.S. Kenya trade